Welcome. My name is Henry Alley, and I'll be reading my story, The Parks Hour, from the May edition of Fresh Words, edited by Song. The Parks Hour. When he awoke that morning, it seemed as though evening were descending all over again, but this time it belonged to a season darker than the usual one surrounding the city. The night before, after he had seen the sick friend before the family arrived, the sunset had been an autumnal haystack, and now there was nothing but a gray fog along the cornices of the city, which he had visited only once before. He had another 100 miles to go before home, just 100, and as he had originally planned in this stopover, he was going to spend the whole Sunday in the city, getting to know it, with all the stores so miraculously open, saving his final drive until nightfall. But in the morning, he had pulled the sheer curtains back to find the fog dense, and he could imagine what it'd be like driving those miles in the dark. And so all plans were dropped. He must get home as soon as possible. The restaurant and the little hotel seemed to agree. The waitress even said he was being wise. And as he sat there watching the pendulum clock swaying in the lobby, he could feel the fog gather and shift, revealing different slants of cornice work in the windows, which reflected the modest chandeliers. And so he said, I must up and go now. Thanks for being there, solid grandfather clock that you are, to remind me that I don't have all the time in the world. And the clock seemed to smile back in the smiling sun above the waves painted over the dial. But what a press of organization and time it takes to check out of a hotel and buy a few things so that there is something to eat along the way. So that by the time he was heading out of the city, temporarily lost again, but sure the right signpost, highway marker, pointing south would come up. It was 2 o'clock. However did the time get away from him? And just at that moment, with him still in the city, with the fog above the stones of the distant houses, a small park appeared, with a long stretch of fog through it, made limitless by the gray air. And he could not resist the impulse to get out and just stand there and watch things. Caretaker's cottage, stone bench, turned sharp and exact, because the fog made the background of green deeper and deeper, and yet somehow more obscure and enclosed. His private moment, and yet a gift given secretly to him by the day, because his time in the city had come prematurely to a close. Through the freeway, through the countryside, he was brought to a tunnel of fog at 3 p.m. into an immediate night of gray, with small random farms appearing only for a split second. Their autumnal windbreaks of honeyed bread momentarily proud, lit candles, and then gone again, subsumed. And even he saw a still Thrillville with its roller coasters and towers, silent and arrested, and then profoundly gone under veils of mist and distant hills. He passed small towns. He was sure they were there, for the signs that appeared at the last moment said so, housing people he had known and loved. And as he drove, because of these people, he thought it might be fitting that he die and vanish here, ironically so close and yet so far. But then at last, a break of light appeared suddenly, and a whole circle of life materialized, gold at the end of what was now clearly a bank of fog. Was that all it had been? And he realized as he stared miles ahead that he was driving toward the afternoon he had missed, and that it would be gone by the time he got there. Nevertheless, the day, once more, was more compassionate than the season, and offered him at last haystack sunset, which went to embers, glowed upon his windows here and there, and on every corner as he pulled up suddenly to his own home with its pink hollyhocks still standing, quiet, shawled, and profound, like a devoted maiden aunt who has waited tirelessly for her only beloved nephew to return from war. That night in his own bed, he dreamed of the mist sifting into his backyard, and in it the park he had known, his park, his gift, because he had not been able, because of the season, to stay and enjoy the gifts as planned from the day. But here they were once more, yet changed and even more valued, a delight in a dream. Thank you for listening to The Parks Hour by Henry Alley in Fresh Words, the May number. And thank you again.